The only way to achieve anything is by hard work.
So, hello, welcome to Entrepreneurs Give Weekly Advice. My name is Chris Murray. I recently started my wine business here in Prague, but I do still have a lot to learn in terms of business and especially about wine. So, I thought the best way to learn is from the successful business owners themselves. And very lucky today, I have the James Bond of the wine industry, Bradley John Mitton. Bradley, hello.
Hello there, how are you doing?
Good, good. Thanks so much
Good to see
for
you.
being here. I found you on LinkedIn and saw Club Vivanova and just a lot of great stuff that you're doing in the wine industry. And could you please tell us about yourself and a quick, brief intro?
Yes, Chris, thank you for having me on your program. It's a great idea, especially in these times when it's a bit tough to get out and
Yeah.
meet people. I started my career 30 years ago when I left the UK and I traveled to Australia on a working visa. In those days, in the 1980s and the early 1990s, it was quite a popular thing.
Yeah.
Australia was promoting work to Europeans, and if you applied for a visa, you could go for a year. So I kind of went for a year and never went back to England. I traveled a lot and I worked quite a lot, and I'd had experience in the UK at an earlier age, working in gastronomy, and I liked it. Most of all, uh, I enjoyed serving clients, and I enjoyed cooking. That's what I kind of recall from when I worked when I was sort of 18 or 19. But I was neither of those in this job. I was simply just a helping hand, and I didn't get the chance to do much of either of that. But then I went to Australia and I worked in a lot of different situations in restaurants. I worked in the north of Australia on the cruises that go out to Norman Reef and to Green Island. Then, to sort of cut a pretty long story short, I moved through Asia and traveled to Hong Kong, but I did a very native travel. So I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to be away from foreigners, and so I went to East Timor. I went to Komodo. I went to Flores. Um,
Quite
this is sort of a
dangerous, especially back then, right? Especially if
Yeah.
you
There was
go.
a civil war on that time in East Timor.
Yeah.
Um, it was. I think the only safety that I had is that I had no money. So I just had clothes on my back and a little bit of money in my wallet, and there was nobody going to bother me. And
They
where I
could
was
just let you
going,
go. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, it was a pretty much a sort of a young person's travel. I wanted to do it. There was a book release at that time called Southeast Asia on a Shoestring, and I kind of followed that. And um, you could live off about £3 or £4 a day
Yeah.
quite easily. But of course, that was just sleeping and moving and eating and traveling. But then I also experienced a lot of local uh, food styles. So as I traveled through all those regions, you learned about all the different ways that they cooked and the fish and the salads and the vegetables. And I traveled up to Thailand. I spent some time in Thailand in 1991. And then I ran out of money. And at that time, Hong Kong was um, a British colony. So anybody with a British passport or a colonial, for example, you could have gone there and worked in the bars.
Mm.
Lots of South Africans were working there, lots of Kiwis, Australians,
Yeah.
British, and people used it as a hub. So I worked there a couple of years. Then I got a job there in a Greek restaurant as a chef. And then I traveled to the Philippines to develop another restaurant. And I mean, each of these parts of my history has got a lot of
Each one kind of teaching you a different lesson that kind of formed you
yes, yeah, and
where you are today.
I kind of went up the ladder through different parts of the business, eventually arriving in the Philippines, and I lived in the Philippines 6 years. I opened my own businesses there and my own restaurant. Then in 2000, I was headhunted to go to South Korea to run a very deluxe restaurant in the middle of Seoul. That company was also importing wine, so I started getting connected to the Australian wine industry.
So was this your first kind of, obviously, you were involved in restaurants and building up your experience like that, but was this like your first real kind of exposure to wines and kind of expertise in that field?
Well, selling it, yes, but dealing with it, no, because I'd been in the restaurant
Yeah.
industry. And as I developed management jobs within the restaurants, we had to do employee training. And, I really started from nothing. I had to go to my wine suppliers and say, look, teach me a little bit about Bordeaux, teach me a little bit about Burgundy, and teach me about Italy. And it's impossible to learn that quickly.
Oh, that's years, I
So
imagine.
I
Because
just,
I'm in
I
that
just,
process a little bit now, but I
right,
guess,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once you get a base, you kind of build on that base and just learn and develop and taste. And, it's not uh, rocket science. It's a natural thing. So you're kind of learning about farming, really, and history and geography and biology and chemistry and physics and everything that's around the vine. And but of course, to sell something, you have to know about it. So I'd had this experience and also a lot of food and wine experience. In fact, when I was in the Philippines, I worked quite closely with Robert Mondavi and his family, and Joseph Druhan from Burgundy, and the Trimbach family from Alsace. So I had pretty good grasp. Um, but at that age, I was 25, 26, and you don't drink a lot of wine at that age. It's not you drink more beer and spirits. And so
Yeah.
it's a hard business to get into, and to develop. But then I was in South Korea and I decided that I wanted to get out of Asia. I've been there 12 years, including Australia. And the big problem I had is that, you end up working very hard for other people because in Asia, you can't open your own business. It's impossible. You've always got to have a partner with 51%. They're very protective, which is a very sensible way of running their economies because they don't have external natives coming in and taking over too much.
Yeah.
They don't have that in Europe. If you look at all the Chinese buying in Bordeaux, it's definitely not reciprocal. And so because of that, I didn't feel totally secure in my business scenarios because you're always at the behest of the person that you're working for. And I got a job offer in Germany. I got on a few job offers, but the best for me and my family, money-wise and security-wise, was Berlin. And I moved to Berlin to work for an English company that imported European wine. They wanted a guy to come in and take over the whole thing and move this business forward because they were going out of business. And I moved to Berlin. It's right around the world. It was a 16-hour flight. Spent a lot of money moving. I did, and the company did. And after 2 months, they went bankrupt. So
No.
yeah, so the owner called me into his office and said, we're out of money. I can keep you on, but only on a commission.
Buddy, I just
Uh,
moved halfway around the world for you.
yeah. So I was in with a big decision, and I pretty much within 24 hours just decided I just had enough of doing things for other people. I went to a lawyer who I'd met during that 2 months, and I said, look, I just want to buy a company. I'll take any name. I want to set up tomorrow. I want to start making money and selling wine. So I did that. And, I talked to my dad because he was quite a big part of this. And in fact, I had to borrow the money from him to set it up because you need 25,000 euros in Germany to set up a limited company. So I borrowed that from him. I paid him back.
In Czech, you need like $500. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you need to have some backup capital in case it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
And I just, I said, what shall I call it? Corkscrew? And he said, no, just call it your name. So I called it Mitton Wines because I'm Bradley Mitton. And I've had the same business card for 20 years, and that's how I started. So the guy that I worked for owed me some money, and he gave me wine as a payment for the money he owed me. And I basically took all of that courage and knowledge and fight and hunger that I had from traveling for 12 years alone. And I put it into just going out and selling and developing relationships with restaurants. And that's how I started 20 years ago. So
yeah, I mean, but if you've traveled for 12 years and especially to all these different countries and you've picked up so many lessons and stuff like that, if you then come and start your business, especially then if you have to develop relationships and stuff like that, I mean, the traveling must have just helped you so much. You must have been kind of streets ahead in a lot of cases.
yeah, it was pretty good value, and then also I went from being a well-known celebrity chef in the Philippines and then going to work as a corporate expat in Korea to having nothing in Berlin. I mean, really, my wife and I, my ex-wife and I, and my son, we had, nothing. We had the most ridiculous little car that blew up after a month. And everything was spent on buying wine to sell wine. So it was quite a big change. But
that kind of brings me to question two, which is like, it's all relevant, but most businesses fail, and like you described now, you've gone from being the king of the mountain essentially to kind of now having to refine yourself and restart everything, and obviously you're doing very well for yourself now. So how was it going kind of from being that in that situation with the crappy car again after you've been on top, and how did you kind of dig yourself out of that and build up?
I think that one of the things that kept me going was, well, first of all, I had a family to support. That helps because then you've got something that motivates you. I also think that when you work for yourself and you achieve things that you feel a lot more committed to doing even better, you get much more inspiration from, buying a box of wine and for 100 and selling it for 200. The 100 goes in your pocket. Well, most of it, the rest, the government doesn't take. But you make a sale and you reap the benefits of your hard work when you work for yourself. There's also the issue that if you don't sell and you fail, but it's your own responsibility then. So you've only got yourself to blame. If the business doesn't work, it's because you're probably not getting up in the morning with the right attitude, and you're not developing ways to market and create opportunity. And I used to sell in lots of different ways. We used to have private sales where we'd have events. One day I just got up and I just walked as far as I could up this really long road in Berlin, and I knocked on every single restaurant door. And I think we maybe got one account from it, but the minute that you start to think that you're failing, you may as well just stop, because there's always an avenue for business, I think, for everything. And you've just got to be committed, and you've got to have some kind of drive, and you've got to have felt the hunger at some stage to have the enthusiasm to get up and keep going. So we developed, we started in Berlin really slowly, and then we got up to about 50 or 60 restaurants. But every lose one or two, and every month you gain one or two. So you can never sit back. And then I went to Prague actually because I had a friend who had suggested the restaurants there were quite interesting. And in about 2005, we set up a partnership in Prague with a distributor. So I would drive to Prague from Berlin, sell, and they would distribute. And we kept that going. It's still going now, actually. It's not as strong now because we lost a lot of momentum when a lot of the international five-star hotels started to close in Prague about 6 or 8 years ago with the recession that swept through Europe. Then we opened in Warsaw, which is still strong for us. And then we developed we worked in Bratislava a little bit. We kind of went very spread out for about 6 years. And then we got too spread out. And I decided that, you don't need to be this big. You've just got to work on places that are successful. And we got 4 hotspots. So we have Berlin, Prague, Warsaw, and we have a warehouse in the south of France where we supply to all of the 5-star hotels on the French Riviera and in Monaco. And we built the business well because we are only working with small batch New World wines, which is a lot of work. Bringing wines in from small wineries and shipping and importing, etc. But it's worthwhile in the end because you've got something that nobody else has.
Yeah. I mean, that was the one idea I had with the South African thing, obviously, because then I can kind of market myself that way through the South Africa. But it's also that, there's not that many South African wines. If I would go buy a bunch of old world wines,
Yes.
You're going to get killed.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly why I started off with New World wines, because everybody's got the Bordeaux, the Burgundy.
Well, in your show that I've seen a few times, like the videos you put on LinkedIn and your monthly wine club, and we'll definitely get to that towards the end. You kind of mix that between old world and new world, right? Like, is it just
yes?
You just find something that you like, or that's really your passion, kind of?
No, that came completely out of COVID. In March, our trade business shut down completely because every restaurant
it's not fun.
We got 150 restaurant clients that are ordering every week. They've got wines by the glass. They've got special wines that we bottle for different hotels. And in March, it just stopped. I mean, it was 98% of our business. And then we transferred everything that we had onto our website, developed a shop, and a couple of people came to me and sort of said, well, can we just get a box every month? And so I set something very simple up. It was actually pretty awful on the website because I didn't know what I was doing, or we didn't have a concept. And then we developed, through help with a company in the UK who offered their marketing services free, which was really amazing. I'd met them in an event in London in March, and they called me up and said, look, we've got nothing to do for 3 months. We want to support a startup. And I said, well, I'm going to start up a brand called Brad's Wine. So I built a website. It took me a lot of time. Wow, what a headache that was. But we built it up with our own website, brads-wine.com. And we wanted to target the UK mainly, which is very big on subscription service wines, where you pay about 50 quid a month and you get a box of wine delivered to your door. And obviously with that, we could not have only New World wines because you've got to have the classics. So then I started to, every day on my inbox, I have, 40 or 50 emails from wineries from Europe, and I never reply. And so I started replying saying, look, if you can get me a red at this budget, because we've got a budget to fit into that box, send me a sample and we'll have a look at it. And so, on the side, quite close to where I'm sitting now, I have about 40 wines from Italy, Spain, Chile, France, all over France, from Côte de Gascogne, from Rhone Valley, from Bordeaux. And I taste through them every month, and we choose 6, 7, 3 whites, 3 reds, and a rosé. And we contact the winery and say, look, we'll do a video, we'll promote the wine, but we'd like to have that wine in our box. Can you hit the budget? And then we ship the wine to Berlin. It's a big nightmare because it's a huge logistical job. And we've only just hit 75 subscribers after 6 months, which is, every one is a big cheer, but we know we lose them sometimes, but the key is to keep them.
Yeah.
And yes, so we do have a selection of wines from all over the world. And I think that when I look at what we have in the box, nobody competes with us because we get amazing value product. In the box, we send, it's completely different to what we normally do. We normally ship out wines to restaurants and they sell them. In these boxes, we've got recipes, we've got tasting notes, we've got a free
tasting
gift.
notes and everything.
Yeah, so people open the box and they're like, wow, what's we're tasting this month, and then now we've got an upgrade on that box, and you can buy 12 or you can buy 18, and
yeah.
So yes, we do international wines, but then also to learn about the new world, you've got to know about the old world because that's where all it came from. All your vines in South Africa, they were planted there in the 1660s and the 1670s by Europeans. So when you learn about the new world, you've got to go back to the old world because that's where it all came from. And there's not a big difference between, a Sauvignon Blanc from Stellenbosch and a Sauvignon Blanc from Sancerre. That it's the same grape, it's the same style of fruit, just got different sunshine hours and a different winemaker. So the basics are the basics are all the same, and it's quite interesting to deal with it instead of having if more people in Europe knew that the new world was actually grapes from Europe, they might drink more of it and they might approach it a little bit better.
Yeah. But at least by that way, then it's kind of, do you find it more easier to kind of market wine to people that don't really know wine that well?
Yes. Well, yeah, and that's why the New World's done so well in places like the UK, because people just drink anything that tastes good and is alcoholic.
Swill the glass and have a smell.
Yeah, they don't really know. They don't have a very big. It's out of probably London. They don't have great wine knowledge, and I'm saying that in a amicable sort of way. It's just that in France, people start drinking wine when they're 5 or 6 years old at home, and they have a glass, and it's a very social thing. Like in Spain and in Italy, they, half the country's living on a vineyard, so they get used to it. And going into France with New World wines is very, very tough because I live in France and I know that. Italy is a little bit more open. Italians are a bit more open into international products. They're a much more traveled, open-minded culture. Spain is very, very difficult because they've got a lot of wine themselves, a lot of very good wine themselves because it's such a warm, easy place to make, to produce grapes. But yes, I think people that don't know much about wine, if you put in front of them a Bordeaux Entre deux Mers and a South African Sauvignon Blanc, which are the same, but just from different countries, I think 90% of them would probably take the South African Sauvignon Blanc because it's less intimidating. Entre deux Mers, they don't even know what that is. They don't know it's a place in Bordeaux that produces Sauvignon Blanc. And the French wines become quite intimidating. And that's why the New World wines are so successful in, Scandinavia, I would say probably Russia, Moscow.
Yeah. Russia is quite. I'm having even a bit of pull there as well at the moment with a few potential buyers.
Yes, yeah.
but it's also more new world and even some old world stuff.
Yeah, they go for a name or something, so they might, they might go for
yeah,
they go for a Bordeaux Chateau, or they would never buy anything that's. One thing I think is interesting. I always try to buy with my client in mind. I never buy with myself in mind, because I'm not drinking the wine where it's
yeah,
going to be in the restaurant. And when a group or a couple go into a restaurant and order, the person who orders the wine always wants to feel confident. And if you don't give them a confident choice, and if it's something it's too obscure, that they're just not going to buy it.
so the menu kind of like,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
we've got a couple of South African wines we just started working with, but we're just going to have Chenin Blanc and Pinotage, and then from Australia we have Chardonnay and Shiraz.
yeah,
In New
classics.
Zealand we got Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir, and Argentina we got Malbec. So Australia is the second largest Riesling producer in the world, but I would never import that into Europe because it's packed with Riesling from Germany. But I
Yeah.
do know people who do, and they get stuck with it. So it just ends up not being a business, viable business.
What do you do if you're stuck with, let's say you know, maybe this happened to you before, if you kind of, you import a wine that you think is going to be a success, right? And you import five different varieties, and four of those five are selling like crazy, but now you have space in your storage room that this wine maybe was just a bad idea to import it, or it's just not performing well on the market, and now it's just taking up space. Has that happened? And
We
do you
Yeah,
kind
oh
of,
yeah.
what are
Yeah,
some ways
definitely.
you can get rid of it?
Well, we have got quite a few diverse ways of doing that, because we've got a wine club where people join and they get bottles, so we stick them in those boxes. And it's normally good. It's normally good wine, but we have had instances in the past where you know, we worked with an organic Sauvignon Blanc from Western Australia, and there's no restaurant in Europe that's buying Sauvignon Blanc from Australia, because if you're going to buy Sauvignon Blanc, it's probably going to be from New Zealand. Second choice would probably be South Africa, um, because New Zealand is pretty strong
Yeah.
on that grape, and so we got stuck with some things. And as long as it's not going off, but if it's a well-made wine, it shouldn't. Um, we would do deals. We could never sell it to restaurants, because the problem is that the restaurant lists it, and we know we'd run out one day. So, you as long we would probably try and get rid of it at cost,
Mm.
which is what we did. We did specials, so we did a Sauvignon Blanc box at a reduced price, and that went in as part of it. Um, but we haven't done that for a long time, because I knew that about 10 years ago, I just saw so many people making mistakes like that. We had recently someone we're working with wanted to bring in a pallet of wine from New Zealand and piggyback on our shipment. And the stuff that he brought in, he's going to be drinking it himself, because
Yeah.
people just aren't buying it. The Riesling is a really good example. So there are some wineries in some parts of Australia that are producing Sangiovese, which they produce in Tuscany. And I would never import it, because
It's
nobody
like
would.
bringing sand to the beach,
Yeah, nobody would bring it in. I think it's also the same thing with the sparkling wines. Trying to bring in sparkling wine. There's a big tax on it, bigger tax on sparkling wine than still wine in Europe, because the French want to protect Champagne and Cremant, the Germans want to protect Sect, the Spanish want to protect Cava, the Italians want to protect Prosecco. And that's another example. It tastes great, and when we have it at the events, everybody says, "Yeah, I'll buy some," but you can never sell it in volume, so we just don't bring it in. We have a very small, focused, uh, strictly run portfolio, and that means that everything's moving, and the whole dynamic of the business is always turning wine and money over.
It's nice that you have, because you can put Brad's wine on the box, right? And then because you have built up like on LinkedIn, you have I think like 12,000 followers or something like
Yeah,
that.
we've got
Like
a good following on
huge
that.
audience. So I'm just saying with you, it's cool that people really trust you in the wine world. That they'll buy whatever box as long as it's Brad's wine on the box, or they know it's coming from Mitton Wines. Then you know they're not going to be that fussed with what's inside because
Yeah, we
they'll.
have a good reputation, just because we've worked hard at sourcing very good wine, but then also with really small dynamic company. We have an office in Berlin. We don't have any trucks. We don't have anything flashy. We are so low key, and in regards to, we don't do any paid advertising. We don't have a flashy logo. We haven't got a flashy office. We're really low cost, and so our margins can be excellent. So we
Yeah,
can sell
that's
at a really good price point.
if you just have your office, you just keep your expenses as low as possible. You keep your team
Yes,
small, and everyone knows what
yes,
they're doing. All that profit comes in; it's all yours. Like it's
yes.
much better that way.
Yeah, and then we can offer deals. So at the moment, we've got a lot of business that we're trying to attract for Christmas. And I think that in March or April, I kind of just said to myself that I will do any deal as long as there is profit in it. So I don't care whether it's just
Hmm.
€1 or 50 cents or 20 cents. I mean, they're not all like that but you've got to just take anything. And we started working a little bit more like that. And companies who don't won't survive. They will not survive through what we're going through at the moment.
Yeah, no, we've been trying to all day building Christmas packages now, and try to promote this and
Yes, that looks good.
kind of try to build this ladder and see how that works out. So be
Yes,
interesting. Bradley, I just wanted we kind of run out of time. I just want to ask you a few more questions quickly.
yes, yes,
So you've seen movies like Wolf of Wall Street where they kind of
yes.
glamorize business and all sorts of shenanigans happen. Has any? I'm sure they have been, and maybe they're not all suited for camera, but has any kind of crazy, outrageous stuff happen? Maybe a funny story.
Yeah. Oh, I had lot. I mean, in my time traveling in 30 years, and all the different places that I've been to, and the things that I've seen and worked with, I have had lots of different experiences. I think that most of the time when I've gone from one opportunity to the next, it's always been an interesting experience. I think possibly one of those like that. The only thing I can think of just that comes to mind is we every year we do a charity gala in Monaco.
I see the pictures. They look amazing.
Yeah, so we have and because we run about 60 events in Monaco each year, we have an office there. And I wanted to run a promotional video of how people could arrive at the gala because I'm a pretty down to earth character, but when you are in Monaco, it's a fantastic place. It's got a lot of history. They have a South African princess. People want to go there and spend a little bit of money and feel good, and that's what we want people to do when they do the gala.
It's upper class. It's
Yes,
fancy.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. It's a very special place. So we produced a video, and I asked the Monaco helicopter company that's owned by uh, part of the principality if I could use a helicopter with a pilot. And then I called up Aston Martin to see if I could use a car when I landed in Monaco. And they agreed and they gave me DB11. And then I asked the general manager at the Fairmont Monte Carlo, who's a good friend, if he would greet me at the door. And so I drove down from where I lived to Nice Airport in a black suit with a bow tie, you know, black tie outfit that you wear for a gala. And I left my car at Nice airport and I got into a helicopter and we did all the filming and I helicoptered, into Monaco. It was amazing
Yes.
experience. Got out of the helicopter. I was filmed getting into a DB11 and then I drove the DB11 through Monaco. The filming is amazing. And then I uh, greeted the Fairmont Monte Carlo manager and walked into the hotel. And then, of course, the filmmaker took all that and he produced an amazing video, which
Yeah.
made me look like a
James
superstar.
Bond. Yeah.
But then, in fact, I had the problem that my car was in Nice airport, which is about an hour away from Monaco, 45 minutes. So I wasn't too sure how to get back. And I said to the film director, come on, we'll jump on the bus. So we got on the bus, the airport bus, and I think it's just a bit of the bus is 12 euros. We took the bus back and I picked up my car. It's just an interesting story, where, 1 minute you can be seen as,
Yeah.
doing all this helicoptering around and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all sort of down to earth, nitty gritty work. And I took the airport bus back to my car, which is, but I have quite a lot of different stories of how I, met different people. But I mean, nothing as sort of incredible as the Wolf from Wall Street. But I do have a great, a good lifestyle. It's not extravagant. I work very hard, and I enjoy life, and I enjoy. I've got animals, and I live about 45 minutes away from Monaco. So I do believe that working hard and having a great business is important, but it's also important to have a secure and balanced home life. The way that you eat and the way that you exercise and the way
Yeah.
that you get away from uh, an environment and have space to think and work and develop your business. Balance is very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And last question is, so what advice would you give to someone looking to start a business now? Someone who wishes to follow their dreams and
Yeah, I would say, I mean, to try and to be as positive as possible. Don't go into something too passionately. I think that passion can often cause issues. I think that if you're going to go into a business, you've got to remember that it's a business and you've got to make money out of it to make it succeed. And sometimes you've got to do things that you might not want to do, which your passion might push you to do. In my business, the passion part is, don't buy wine that you like or something that's, ultra special. You've got to buy wine that sells. And I would say to anybody that the only way to achieve anything is by hard work, and getting up in the morning and being motivated and sacrifice. You've got to sacrifice a lot to succeed. And that includes everything from time, friendships, perhaps not your best friendships, but friendships that maybe you don't need. They always say that it's lonely at the top.
yeah.
And when you take yourself away and work hard and become successful, you can lose friends because of your success. But you can also develop yourself by finding new friends who might help you to step up further and develop yourself further. And often when you get more successful, you have to make decisions on your own. So yes, it can be quite a lonely place, but then I think any good leaders are a bit lonely. They've got their own things and they believe in themselves. And if you believe in yourself and you are ready to put the hard work in, I think anything's achievable. I mean, that's historically, look at people like Genghis Khan and Julius Caesar and, some of the great leaders who've gone and just done the most incredible things by self-belief and motivation.
And doing it their way as well.
Yeah, they've done it their way. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Last thing, if anyone wishes to find you to buy wine, business inquiry, or maybe they want to meet you in Monaco, how do they get a hold of you?
I think they can, if they Google Mitton wines, and also
Mhm.
we've got the club online, which is Club Vivanova.
Mhm. I can put it here when I edit this.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
then people can have a look at what we do. We do great events. We're doing a Zoom tasting next week. We've got lots of things going on because we're really dynamic, and we just want to show people a good time with good wines. And since COVID, we've been a lot more personal with our clients. Before it was a lot more selling into restaurants, but now, of course, we can't do that. That should come back. But we've developed a really good following of people.
I'm really hoping. Yeah.
Yes, it will. I'm sure by the middle of next year, we'll all be back to normal. There might be a lot of restaurants who are not there anymore, but I think that we do lots of great things. So if you're interested in following our dynamic story, then that would be great. And I really appreciate being offered the chance to talk, Chris. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much for being a guest. And thanks again. Have a great weekend. I'll probably see you on your wine tasting. So
great.
Okay, cool. All right. Cheers, Bradley.
Thanks. Thanks
again.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.